So, would like to begin with you, sir. So, per the background on SDG 8, what we want to find out is currently we have over 40 million people seeking employment on a yearly basis. We still do not have job opportunities for them. And now we have SDG 8 that seeks to find decent work for all people. And we are asking ourselves, if we've not been able to find work for the over 40 million people yearly who are seeking jobs, how are we saying now that we are setting the targets to achieve decent work for all?
Muchas gracias por la pregunta, que tiene una respuesta compleja. En primer lugar, veréis que los tres panelistas de esta sesión somos occidentales y europeos. Y lo subrayo porque la situación del empleo es muy distinta según los países del mundo. Es decir, hay muchos sitios en donde la transformación de un empleo informal en un empleo formal es una gran conquista. En otros sitios donde los mínimos derechos de la jornada de trabajo es una conquista que ha sido ya alcanzada en otros muchos países. Pero en esos otros países, algunos de ellos del área europea, esos derechos están ahora mismo en riesgo, están ahora mismo sometidos a una competencia globalizada que tiende a reducir al mínimo común, que tiende a igualar por abajo las condiciones laborales que existen en muchos países del mundo. Los Objetivos Sostenibles de Desarrollo es un compromiso para el conjunto de la humanidad y debemos afrontarlos colectivamente con una estrategia común, pero cada uno de los países o zonas geográficas tiene unos retos distintos respecto del empleo. Lo que yo sí creo, y no quiero alargarme mucho, es que en una reunión de jóvenes socialistas de muchas partes es buen momento para reflexionar sobre un cambio cultural que no tenemos asumido. Hasta ahora el trabajo, el empleo, estructuraba la biografía y la vida de las personas. Se estudiaba para luego ejercer una profesión. Se trabajaba para poder formar una familia. Se jubilaba uno y tenía una serie de derechos adquiridos durante un periodo de trabajo estable, con unos derechos reconocidos en una negociación colectiva en la que a los trabajadores los defendían los sindicatos. Caminamos hacia un mundo en el que el trabajo no va a ser la estructura social que permita concebir esa homogeneidad de los seres humanos. Es decir, estamos en la frontera de una robotización que va a cambiar el concepto de trabajo. Ya ha cambiado el concepto de empresa, ya ha cambiado el concepto de derechos de los trabajadores en muchos campos. Estamos viviendo en un mundo en el que la demografía genera 40 millones de necesidad de nuevos empleos, pero que al mismo tiempo expulsa de muchos países que no tienen oportunidades a través de la emigración a otros países o a otros continentes. Estamos en un momento en el que la ciberseguridad puede ser un elemento determinante para las oportunidades en muchos campos de la vida laboral. Lo que quiero decir es, primero, tenemos que trabajar naturalmente para conseguir poner en práctica los Objetivos Sostenibles de Desarrollo. Tenemos que hacerlo con una estrategia global. Las organizaciones globales como IUSY tienen que jugar un papel en la configuración de esa estrategia global. Tenemos que empezar a pensar, sin embargo, que el futuro del mundo del trabajo es un futuro totalmente distinto del que hemos vivido hasta ahora. Y tenemos que ser conscientes, sin embargo, de que centenares o millones de personas en el mundo todavía tienen que alcanzar el nivel de respeto a sus derechos y de trabajo digno que existe en otras partes del mundo. Digamos que la desigualdad sigue existiendo a pesar de que unos países estén progresando y otros sigan perdiendo derechos.
Thank you very much. And I would ask the same question to you, Carly.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm not sure if we can cover all the points within an hour or so, but I think that it's really important to discuss this. I mean, employment is much more than just providing. It's much more than bringing in income. It's about meaning. It's about purpose. I mean, when you meet someone, what's one of the first questions you say? What do you do? It defines you. It's part of your identity. So when we're talking about 40 million jobs, I think we need to think about the root causes, first of all. Why are people unable to access employment? And I think there's a multitude of issues. I think inclusivity is a big thing, but I think we have to look at the structure that we live within, so looking at capitalism as a structure, and how employment excludes many. I think we need to look at the issues of multinationals holding monopolies over jobs, and also the often conflict of interest that we see within our own governments with respect to contracting, and also the huge wage gap between the lowest paid and the highest paid in our societies. I think these are all things that it's really hard to talk about because it's really hard to come up with solutions to these issues. So I think that if we're looking at kind of opening up the job market for more people, we need to look at putting really radical policies in place to ban zero-hour contracts, to increase living wage, but also to decrease those higher wages through ratios. I also think we have to have a look at our own parties and see how progressive they're being. I think we've got a lot of work to do within the socialist and social democratic family to challenge the norms in terms of employment now. And I think we really need to focus on that decent work. Yeah. We've often talked about employment in terms of statistics, in terms of how many people are unemployed in a certain country. But then we're not looking at how many of those people have a secure income. We're not looking at how many of those young people know if they're going to be able to bring in any money for their rent next month. So we really need to look at how we can make employment work for all. And I think we have to put some quite radical agendas forward, which I think we're going to hopefully talk about a little bit more in this panel.
Thank you very much. And I think I would add to what you said that, yes, decent work for all is an important policy that the UN has brought to bear. But we all know that although the different countries have different demographies and different policies and different levels of development, no one country is immune from the lack of decent work for all. And each and every one of our countries is actually suffering or is lacking this particular policy. And this is why I think it's important that you raise the point. So I'll come to you, Brando.
Yes, I think it's been a good idea to have a panel on this specific topic, because I think, as it also comes out from what my fellow panelists have been saying, this is one topic where it's not easy, although we need to do it, to find a global agenda, because it's something that when we talk about work, we are talking about economic disparities, different stages of development of different countries, and so it's a very complicated topic to consider and to discuss, to find policy solutions at a global level, because we discuss a lot about this. For example, in Europe, I'm a member of the Employment Committee in the European Parliament, but obviously, as we are in IUSY Congress, and I know how much work has been done by Howard, but by Alessandro as leadership in these years to discuss about many complicated topics like this one, where, as I said, I think the conflicting interests of different continents, of different groups of people come very clear. And so we need to find a progressive agenda that is common across the different geographic areas. I mean, as it was said, there are many, many different things we could talk about. I will try to pinpoint a few issues that can be part of this global agenda, as was also mentioned at the beginning. The UN is trying also through the work done with IUSY as a member of the ECOSOC conference and network to give inputs on this. And so we need to confront the issue. One point, in my opinion, is the issue of the global tax evasion problem and the related corruption. This is something that is really a global issue, because when we are unable, wherever we are in our world, to put the right request of support in terms of tax paying, of revenue coming from different kinds of people. And we know that all over the world now we have people that are not paying their fair share. They are not contributing. And in this way, they are in all corners of the world destroying jobs, destroying the conditions to develop innovation and development. And so I think that fighting against global tax evasion should unite us. Yeah. It's something I remember also in the IUSY camp, there was some debates on this, and it's a global campaign that IUSY is participating in against global tax evasion. It's something where the European Parliament has been on the forefront with inquiry committees on the Panama Papers, on the Paradise Papers. I think we need to consider this issue also when we talk about work, because if we don't create a sound environment for a fiscal contribution, especially by those billionaires that try to avoid to give their fair share, we cannot build an environment in the world creating good and decent jobs for everyone. So this is one topic. The other one is the change towards a sustainable development model, the issue of sustainability and the fight against climate change. A lot of work is being destroyed by the degradation of our environment. We see now in European Union a lot of people starting to come because of climate disasters. Yeah. So they are climate refugees, because development, jobs, work, economic development is impossible in the place where they are, because climate change and environment degradation is cancelling all the development opportunities. Many comrades here are already experiencing this in their countries. So fighting together as IUSY, as young progressives, and with the political progressives around the world to maintain higher level objectives for climate defense, for fighting against climate change and for environment defense, I think again is a global fight that has much to do about the possibility to have fair and decent work everywhere. And last point I want to raise in this round of interventions is the need to develop a system of rules around our world, especially when we look also at the changing structure of the workforce. Enrique has touched upon the issue of the digital revolution going on that is touching in different forms countries, in different parts of the value chain of the digital revolution. And this is something that gives us the necessity as progressives to develop policies so that the system can be reformed in a way so that no work is being done in a way that is doing dumping against the others. We need to build a sustainable, upward-looking economic and job system in the world so that we can avoid intolerance, racism, race to the bottom of workers' rights because of a competition of low wages. This is something we have been discussing and reflecting a lot also when I was a young activist, a member of the Sinistra Giovanile and Democratic Youth in the member organizations. How can we build an upward convergence? This is not a matter also for Europe. As a member of European Parliament, and I conclude on this, we work a lot on the convergence of the European countries, but this is something that has a global perspective. Upward convergence of labor standards, which is obviously not easy and must be considered also based on the different economic development levels of the various areas of the world, is something we need to reflect more for a global agenda. Because if we can create better conditions for workers everywhere, we can have a healthier and more sustainable economy where, just to conclude on this point, where rent, capital gain, financial assets are not considered as exempt from the need to contribute to the creation of jobs and development. We still have in the world the risk of developing a model where it's not jobs, it's not the real economy, it's not the development of jobs and decent jobs to be preferred in terms of policies instead of protection of existing rent and capital. I think that this is something that is part of a possible global agenda for work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brando. And just to say that you would have the chance to ask questions after this round of questions that I'm going to ask them. And so if you have any questions, just jot them down and you'll be given the opportunity. But just to stay on you, Brando, I think that for us in the leftist movement, we appreciate that decent work for all is the foundation to ensure that there is inclusive, equitable development for all of us. And we say equity because these are the values that we believe in. We believe that there must be social justice. We believe that there must be equality among persons. And I think that for IUSY, being nominated as the global focal point on SDG 8, it goes back to show that we are doing something that the world is recognizing. And I think also to add to your point about tax evasion, the political economy working group reported, and this is a campaign that IUSY has been undertaking for some time now, and it is actually nice that you point that out as one of the things that we must actually take into consideration when looking at these issues. But my question to you, and I would stay on you, is how do we ensure that as young people, we are receiving training in various universities on different areas, but also there's this upsurge of technology. However, we don't know what the balance, where the fair balance needs to be drawn. We want to know, how do we ensure that there's no skills mismatch in terms of the development of young people?
Yes, I can give you the example on how, from the European institutions, we are trying to tackle this issue. And I think, obviously, as you said, it's not just a European issue, it's a global issue. Every region of the world is dealing with this point. How can we have people prepared, ready to find their way into the job market, into the possibility of developing their own future in a changing economic landscape all over the world. Yeah. On one hand, it's clear that, again, based on different development stages of the various countries in the world, we need to invest more on training for people in new technologies. I believe a lot on that. At the same time, I want to also underline that it's clear that some changes will not be just taken care of by having a more digitally prepared, digitally savvy young generation. I think we need a broader reflection. I give you one example. There are many areas in the world, again, Europe is spearheading, but not just Europe. If you look at the data on these, some Southern America countries, Japan, some countries in Africa, they have longer and longer lifespans and much more older people. In these countries, so this also resounds for some countries, in these countries where the life expectancy is growing more and more, well, the issue of having a job market and a space for more work on care of human people, of human beings, of how to work for an aging population in terms of health, in terms of psychological support, in terms of participating actively in life. I think this is something we need to think about. In my opinion, no robot can overcome the need for human touch in terms of relation, in terms of work that humans can do. And this is something that is the other face of a changing society, more technological, but also aging in many parts of the world in terms of changes. This means also that when we look at the global movements in terms of workers, we need to find a better way of dealing with economic migration. You know that it's still a big issue of debate in Europe, and we need to overcome systems that are punishing a fair and a balanced exchange of workers. I'm not talking about the refugee issue, that's another thing, and we know that we want to help all those that are asking as asylum seekers for being refugees. I'm talking about pure and real economic migration. This is something that must be governed at a global level, and it's still not being done. And I look especially at Europe being very bad at this at the moment, fragmented and unable to find a political stance to organize this. And this is also important when we look at the global job market, because I've been working, for example, on the blue card, a system for having high quality, how can I say in English, well-prepared, high qualification migration from all over the world towards Europe. And this has been a big problem for many young people that, for example, were super specialized on some topics, or were working in universities, and they wanted to move to Europe, and they had a lot of problems because of a lot of political fueled decisions to create barriers to migration. So we need to reflect on this and find new solutions. Also, just to conclude on the point you asked, again, as I said, with preparing our young people with more also technological education, for sure. But in general, again, trying to give a broader perspective, lifelong learning. I think this is something where we have been working a lot as progressives, as young socialists also in the past years, and I think that this is something that we need to ensure to everyone, because yes, we want more stability in jobs, we want decent work, we want people to be able to have a stable future. This is the first thing. But then we need also to be able to provide for those that will need, because word sometimes can go against our wishes, to change their jobs, to change the place where they work. We need to support them. We don't need to surrender to this model. I think we need not to exalt the idea of flexibility and extreme mobility of the work environment. We need to have our values in front of us, but also be able to give people the capability when world is changing and asks them to be ready for new opportunities. I think this is, again, something that is a global issue that we need to tackle with a global reflection.
Thank you very much. And I just got notice that we have just about 10 minutes left, but I would like to come to you. We progressives believe in justice, equal opportunity. The question is, we have, maybe not in Europe, but in other continents, we have situations where a lot of the exports that come to developed countries, we have a lot of, forced labor, child soldiers. Is there any policy that Europe is taking to ensure that a lot of the exports coming from developing countries, we are actually ensuring that there is actually decent work associated with these exports?
Sí, gracias. En primer lugar, quiero subrayar que junto con Juventudes Socialistas, con la Internacional de Juventudes Socialistas, el Global Progressive Forum ha organizado en el pasado campañas específicas sobre evasión fiscal y sobre trabajo decente, es decir, que estamos trabajando en el mismo campo. En relación con tu pregunta, evidentemente las relaciones comerciales son asimétricas a lo largo del mundo. De hecho, el Global Progressive Forum está en estos momentos elaborando un estudio, una propuesta política sobre cómo afrontar desde una perspectiva progresista una política comercial inclusiva en el ámbito internacional. Y a su vez el Parlamento Europeo es una institución que tiene en estos momentos en sus manos aprobar o rechazar algunos de los acuerdos comerciales que se están negociando a nivel global. De hecho, el Parlamento votó en contra de uno de estos acuerdos comerciales, conocido como TISA, que afectaba a determinadas materias de economía avanzada, derechos de propiedad, etcétera, etcétera, que plantean problemas en varias partes del mundo, servicios distintos, y sin embargo ha votado a favor de un acuerdo comercial con Canadá, el llamado acuerdo CETA, que consideramos que es un acuerdo que responde a algunas de las condiciones que desde una perspectiva progresista hay que exigir en los acuerdos comerciales. Esas reservas se refieren a que ningún acuerdo comercial debe dañar los derechos laborales, ningún acuerdo comercial debe dañar el medio ambiente, la sostenibilidad medioambiental y ningún acuerdo comercial debe conducir, como ha señalado Brando, a la race to the bottom, es decir, a un deterioro de las condiciones laborales. El Parlamento Europeo, por ejemplo, ha tomado decisiones que nuestros compañeros asiáticos recordarán, el famoso accidente de la Plaza Rama en la producción textil, exigiendo condiciones de trabajo sobre ámbitos distintos de la producción. En estos momentos, en los acuerdos comerciales en negociación, en la Unión Europea estamos exigiendo además balance de género, protección a políticas de inclusión que desde luego incluyen elementos como de equal pay for equal job in the equal place, ¿no? Es decir, que hay numerosos elementos que deben ser incorporados a los acuerdos comerciales. Yo, de hecho, pertenezco a la Asamblea Parlamentaria Conjunta África, Caribe, Pacífico, Unión Europea. Y soy consciente de que hay muchos países, fundamentalmente africanos, que tienen muchas reservas sobre las llamadas IPA, es decir, Economic Partnership Agreement, porque hay serias dudas de que estos acuerdos comerciales, lejos de ayudar a los países en menor desarrollo a progresar, realmente les están creando dificultades en el propio progreso autónomo de ese país. En definitiva, añadiendo a los puntos de la agenda global a los que se refería Brando, creo que el de los acuerdos comerciales o la política comercial internacional justa, equitativa, acorde con reglas y con preservación de los derechos laborales y medioambientales es un elemento determinante para conseguir un desarrollo equilibrado y a su vez justo a lo largo del mundo. Y la próxima vez que moderes una mesa, cuando te encuentres con un italiano, ten cuidado porque o se le corta o es capaz de hablar durante 25 minutos sobre la pregunta más corta.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. I understand now. Okay. So, Kali, I would come to you. We know the work IFM has been doing for the many years. The question is, how do young people mobilize for this campaign?
Thank you for the question. I think, first of all, you get young people involved in the campaign at every level. I think it's really important that we're speaking with young people and not for young people. And by young, I also mean kind of the younger teens now. I think that my generation in my late 20s and the current generation in their young teens are facing hugely different barriers. And so what we need to do is engage with them from a young age. I think also we need to work with young people to break down the hierarchy between academia and skills-based education in order to look at employment from a wider perspective rather than the expectations that have been put onto my generation, certainly within Europe. And I think it needs to be part of a wider context. Like, why is employment important? Why is it relevant to young people? And also giving young people the tools to then engage in a dialogue with decision makers and with the wider society in order to get their views listened to. I find often we work a little bit in isolation. We talk within our own groups, but then it's really hard to have an impact. So from our side, I think it's really important that we continue the relationship between organizations like IFM-SCI, who work on education, and the party youth, but also with our other partners like GPF and also Solidar, and also working directly between the young people and the decision makers through structured dialogue is really, really important. But first and foremost, it's about getting young people involved and leading it, rather than just being talked to or talked at by older people.
Right. Thank you very much. I think we had a discussion about this yesterday. So at this point, I would open the floor for any questions. We've literally run out of time. And would welcome at least one or two questions if there are. Okay, so we do not have any questions. Okay, all right, Camilo. There's a question. Yeah.
My question is very simple. Do you think that there will be a future of work? Is the future of work for everyone? Will there be a job for everyone tomorrow?
Okay. All right, so I think I would pass that to Brando.
Not easy question. For sure, what we are trying to do is to have as many jobs as possible for everyone, and at the same time to consider, especially in some countries where there is discussion and means for doing that at the moment, also instruments to support income in periods where work is not there. Obviously, in more economically developed countries, the issue of the reduction of working time, I think, will become more and more important in the moment where we have more and more automation. So, from my side, I would say these, and if I can add on what my colleague has said on the issue of decent work in the international commercial relations, I want to say that as Parliament, as it was said, we are trying to be sure that when there are jobs, new jobs, they are as decent and as much as decent as possible. And I know, for example, the work that has been done on eradicating, with the UN participation, in Central Asia, especially in Uzbekistan. I've been following the issue directly as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the child labor and the forced labor. And it's true that we are able, as if I look as a member of the European Parliament at the role of the European Parliament, we can play a role on that, especially more easily with medium-sized and smaller countries. Obviously, when we look at the issue globally, we would need more political commitment and more and stronger political movements fighting for decent work at a global level. Otherwise, I think we will not be able to put this at a higher level agenda, at the level where we need this fight to be brought to. So, yes, this from my side on the topic.
Would you like to add?
Pues yo quería señalar que es difícil responder a la pregunta si mañana habrá un trabajo para cada persona, pero de lo que se trata es de crear las condiciones en las cuales se genere trabajo, se genere empleo y se genere empleos que puedan ser calificados como empleos decentes que estructuren en cierto modo la vida de las personas. Para eso hay que ofrecer educación. Antes se ha planteado el asunto. Yo tengo una larga trayectoria en el campo de la educación en mi país. Hay un debate siempre presente sobre la educación. Hay quienes creen que hay que adquirir conocimientos concretos y hay quienes defienden que hay que proporcionar capacidades a los estudiantes, a los jóvenes. Las capacidades te permiten adaptarte a cambios inesperados, frecuentes o, en todo caso, intensos. Los conocimientos decaen con el paso del tiempo. Por eso, la educación ha de ser lo más amplia posible y lo más comprensiva posible. El conocimiento es la única energía que no se agota. Es la energía que es irreemplazable. No hay nada que pueda sustituir al conocimiento. Al carbono lo podrá sustituir las energías renovables, a otra serie de elementos lo sustituirán nuevas tecnologías, pero el conocimiento es insustituible y a su vez es inagotable. Y lo que hay que procurar es generar en todas nuestras sociedades de una manera inclusiva a todo el mundo el conocimiento, las habilidades, las capacidades para que pueda encontrar un trabajo. Pero yo vuelvo a algo a lo que he dicho antes, que creo que es muy importante. Hay que mentalizarse a que en el futuro el trabajo no va a estructurar la vida de las personas de la misma manera que lo ha estructurado en el pasado. Nuestra panelista decía con razón que un empleo es algo más que una profesión o que una manera de ganarse la vida económicamente. Un empleo es una manera de insertarse socialmente, es una manera de sentirse satisfecho con uno mismo, de sentirse en cierta manera realizado individual y socialmente. Y por eso tener un empleo no es solamente una oportunidad, tiene que ser un derecho, porque nadie se realiza a sí mismo fuera de una situación en la que se pueda sentir útil para sí mismo y para la sociedad. No sé si habrá empleo para todos, pero eso debe ser nuestro objetivo y, en todo caso, la formación ocupa un lugar determinante en ese futuro.
Thank you. Carly?
Thank you for the question, Carmelo. I'm going to keep it really short because I can see Anna looking over here. So yeah, I think everyone should have the right to work, and that every single person who wants to work should have the opportunity, but there should be that real focus on decent work. And in order for that, we need to have a fundamental change in the economic system that we live in right now. We need to have a much stronger regulation of the private sector and promoting a much stronger public sector in the context of looking at developing both education and the welfare state at the same time together.
All right, thank you very much. So I think there's consensus on the panel that in as much as we have the right to work, there must be decent work for all. And we must ensure that as young people, we are continuing to fight for the rights of workers. We are continuing to ensure that there's equality between male and female, old and young, in terms of how they are treated in the place of work. Thank you very much, and I think we would end the session here. Thank you.